a lot of last-minute giving and a lot of last-minute appeals, and there are people, for example, who are making large gifts with stock, for example, who are waiting until December 31st to push the button to make the transfer, because they're trying to time it and this and that. Yeah, they don't want to wait until next year because it won't count. After December 31st, it will not count for the tax year.
Can you believe that tomorrow is another holiday?
It's actually pretty stunning, isn't it? Every week there's a new holiday. Well, it's not new, but another holiday.
Yeah, because now it's going to be the Federal Territory Day.
That's
and it's
right.
like, okay,
And
people have to take it.
It's an important day, not only because it's Federal Territory Day, but because the country is getting a new agong tomorrow.
Oh yeah, or is it just today?
It's happening, the transition's happening today. Today is the last day of the previous agong from Pahang, and this is the transition day for the new agong from Johor, Sultan Ibrahim.
So interesting times are coming.
Very
right
interesting, yeah.
Well, you know what
Hopefully
is more
not too interesting.
You know what is more interesting now?
Yes.
The start of our episode. I guess we can start right now.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode on The Long FVR. Today we have Susanne. Thanks for doing this.
Very nice to see you, Fabian.
Indeed, we have been talking about this opportunity for a while. There has been like chats that, okay, maybe by the end of the year, but now this is a new year, and now this is the dawn of a new age. It's like such a suitable moment. People will be watching you and they will be like, hey, we want to know a little more. So can you tell us a little more about yourself?
Well, where do I begin? Well, I'm born and raised in Malaysia, and I'm of mixed race heritage. My father's Malaysian, Malay, and my mother is Scandinavian descent, but she grew up in the U.S. So I lived here and went to local schools until I went for higher education in the United States. And then I married an American, and then I ended up staying there and being in higher education for my career there, and in philanthropy, which is, of course, fundraising. And about 3 years ago, I came back to Malaysia and found myself with a position here at Asia School of Business, which has been really wonderful. It's an incredible school with fascinating parentage with Bank Negara and MIT Sloan School of Management. And the project here, business education, but ethical and transformative, is one that I totally stand for and believe in. So happy to be here.
It's paramount to realize that so many things has been going on. And you mentioned a keyword that people sometimes trying to understand, philanthropy. So can you tell us what philanthropy is all about?
Philanthropy is about charitable giving. People and maybe organizations and so on, giving their resources, usually money, but sometimes other things as well, to support another project, to support a philanthropic cause, a charitable cause. It can be education, it can be the environment, it can be poverty issues, things that affect people. But giving those resources to make things better, to solve problems, and to help other people. So that's what philanthropy is all about. And I've been so privileged to be in this line of work for these last several decades, primarily because the people who are giving the money away and the people who are involved in philanthropy tend to be people who are big-hearted and wise and caring. So I've really had the benefit and the pleasure and the privilege of working with those people to support their charitable activities in giving their money away.
It's true. The charity and the gift is usually to make things better. And when we discuss about higher education, sometimes we talk about the trust funds or the family offices trying to give some donations, or even right now hedge funds trying to give huge checks to the Ivy League schools for financial aid or the like of it. I believe that's what people usually think about philanthropy. And you mentioned something even more important, which is to make things better.
Right.
Without almost expecting anything in return, because it's like a gift.
That's right.
And given your career, because you have been in other parts of the world, can you tell us where it all began?
Where it all began?
Uh-huh.
It actually began at my own alma mater, my own school, my own college, where I attended and where I got my bachelor's degree. And a few years after leaving it, I returned to the area And I took a job there. The place is called Pitzer College. It's one of the Claremont colleges in Southern California. And I came back to Pitzer College to work on a conflict resolution project that got college students together with local schools to teach conflict resolution. There's a lot of sort of conflict between different races, in Southern California, which is where this is located. And so the idea was to teach these college students the skills that they can then take into the schools and share with the children in the schools. But the project that I was involved in was grant funded, and it became clear pretty quickly we were being successful, but we needed more money. So I started to get involved in grant funding, so grant writing, right, reaching out to foundations about getting more resources, and that was successful. And I found myself being invited to get involved in more fundraising at the school. They wanted me to start a parents fundraising program, which I started, and we raised money from parents of college students, asking them to give to this school. And that just grew, and I found myself over time with a career in this area of higher education. We were raising money from parents, from alumni, from foundations, from businesses. And it's a very fully developed activity at most institutions, most higher education schools in the U.S. and many other parts of the world as well. So that's how it got started.
It's so clarifying when you mention which are the areas that just been answering, because if I want to put something on my eyes, I will be hearing like any other tech startup CEO saying that we need to do fundraising, which is usually the same skill, and it requires not only the tacit opportunity to fundraise or talk or do due diligence to get money and also to offer returns, but here you were talking with parents. I mean, when we were kids talking with our parents, it was always difficult to convince about an idea,
Right.
let alone pitch about, can you give me some cash? And you were sitting with plethora of parents to say, we need to create this fund.
That's right.
So, which were the main frictions that you realized during that particular time when you were creating all these funds?
You mean frictions as in problems? Or
Problems and solutions, yes.
Well, it's hard for me to think about what the problems were at that time because we were building a program actually at my institution. It was very small when I started, and by the time I left, that job or that school, it was 9 years later, and so we had built a whole program. I would say that the frictions or the problems might be that we just didn't have as sophisticated a program as we could have. So if you think about Harvard and MIT and Cornell and Yale, places like that, they have very fully developed fundraising activities and programs with lots of people and lots of different strategies for raising money. And my institution at the time did not have all of that. We were still very small, more fledgling than these others. It was actually a relatively new institution established in 1963. So we had not built all of that infrastructure for effective fundraising. And it just takes time. And also our alumni were not as wealthy. A lot of the alumni of the institution had gone into social services, non-governmental organizations. They were artists, filmmakers, people like that. Not as many who had gone right into finance or more lucrative careers. And so they didn't have as much money to give. And so it just took time to build a more comprehensive fundraising effort. I would say that that's probably the main friction. But in terms of it being sales, it is, in a way, it is a sales job in fundraising because you are trying to ask people to support something, and what they get back from it, from their giving, is not always, or not, very rarely is it tangible. It's supposed to be charitable, which means that they are really giving something, right? And that kind of sales is something, of course, that I've been doing now for quite a long time, right? What's important is to really care and have true passion, sincere passion and interest in what you're asking people to support. Because if you don't have that, it's hard to be effective. It's hard to be any good at it, and and it's also not personally meaningful. So.
This is so clear right now how you're making the analogy, because when you mention about making the statement clear, making the purpose clear, it's like when the hedge fund managers are sitting right there with the VCs to say, can we clarify our mandate? Or can we say which are the verticals we want to invest? Or when the VCs are with the tech CEOs, like, can you tell us which is your clear purpose so we can be easier to invest money there? It's like, it's the same thing
There's
all over
a
and over
very
again.
strong analogy, and in fact, one of the I would say enjoyable aspects of being in my line of work in philanthropy is that it's always very interesting to get to know people and to figure out what they really care about, what moves them. Because if you can figure out what they care about, what moves them, then you will be more successful and you'll know what to ask them to do. If you know that they care about, for example, other people, and they care about education, and they care about other people being successful, then the scholarships might be the right thing to ask them to support, because when a scholarship is a wonderful charitable gift, because it supports the person who's getting the education. So an individual is getting a scholarship, they're getting the education, right? The person who's giving the money can take great pride and pleasure in the person who's being educated. See what I'm saying? So, and then the institution, of course, that is actually the institution is the entity that actually gets the scholarship money ultimately, and that comes to the institution and can cover everything the institution is doing to educate that person. It will cover the faculty salaries. It will cover the cost of running the building. It basically helps with the operations of the whole, educational program, which is why I sort of think scholarships is a wonderful kind of gift. But then there are people who want visibility for themselves, and those people will want things like to put their name on a building. They want to have their name so that everybody can see how generous they've been, right? And if you know that that's what somebody cares about, that they want that visibility, you get to know them and you find out that's what they would appeal to them, then you can offer that to them. Yes, when it's appropriate.
I'm happy that you are bringing this up, because people who have been visiting those Ivy League schools, let's say MIT Sloan, all of a sudden you're going to see that every single study room has a name.
That's right.
Every single seat may have a name, and it's like, how do you get that? And then if you are interested to say, okay, if I want to put my name there, how much is going to cost me, for how long, and even more important, the tax purposes.
Right.
Because a lot of people want to do this even through perpetuity, to have these tax allocations going on. And especially in a state like California, tax talk is huge.
It's the tax benefits of charitable giving in the United States is very, very important aspect of philanthropy. So usually there's a schedule to doing some of these things. So when you're getting towards the end of the calendar year, October, November, you already have been planning what you're going to tell all of your potential donors about why there's such a great benefit to giving, to making a gift, because they will get the tax benefit, which will, of course, reduce their taxable income and reduce their tax burden. So it's a very important argument, and it makes a strong case for people to give.
And I'm happy when you mentioned the time window, which is clear to November, December of the year, because tax season ends on April the next year. And you need to do the gift, and then you need to put the paperwork, and then allocate all the documentation. So then the IRS is like, okay, you're good.
There's a lot of last-minute giving and a lot of last-minute appeals, and there are people, for example, who are making large gifts with stock, for example, who are waiting until December 31st to push the button to make the transfer, because they're trying to time it and this and that. Yeah, they don't want to wait until next year, because it won't count. After December 31st, it will not count for the tax year.
So, given those remarks and the background of your work in California, I need to ask, have you been in other states as well, and how has been the difference between those charitable givings?
Well, I've been involved in philanthropy in California, in Oregon, and in Ohio. And they all follow the same basic principles of, when of your certainly they follow the tax year. That's a national thing. The rules are pretty much the same from state to state. There are really not that many differences. So yeah, I haven't really found too much difference.
We discuss right now the charity, like corporate charity. And if I remember correctly, in Ohio and also Oregon, they happen to have a huge influence for athletics. So how is the athletics giving different from the corporate giving?
Um, well, even gifts to athletics programs, if they are part of the public university, which is true in Oregon and true in Ohio, there's two big teams, right? Ohio State University and Oregon,
The Mighty
University
Ducks.
of Oregon, the Mighty Ducks, and the Buckeyes from Ohio. So both of those teams are state, both of those universities, institutions are state funded. So they accept charitable gifts. So for example, in Oregon, the biggest donor of University of Oregon, who has funded the Ducks and built a whole new stadium for them, he's basically given them, I would have to say, probably $1 billion over time. Those funds are charitable gifts, and they are tax deductible. And it starts to get complicated because there's only so much tax deduction that you can get every year.
That's right.
Against your income. So if he's making, Phil Knight is his name, he's
Nike?
From Nike, the founder of Nike. And if he has, let's just say he made $1 billion 1 year, but his gift was $500 million that year, maybe not all of it can be credited against his income. There's limits, but these are really big amounts that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's so important to have this conversation because when you put the TV on Saturday, or let's say you're watching your phone, and then you see, oh, look at that, these big games. Those big games have a big structure behind, and you have to fund this structure. It comes with the gifts. The so-called recruitment season for the athletics from the high school to enter those teams is like how you fund those systems through the gifts. Or also, for example, the field nights of the world realize I have so much affiliation for my alma mater, and it's like I want to give to them so they can get better and better. And that part is usually not very well discussed because it's like how they do that, and after you do the due diligence and after you talk with people like you, for example, it's like, oh, now it makes sense. And how can I enter? But of course, there are levels in the game.
Well, that level of philanthropy is the extremely high. It's at the top. Yeah, that kind of generosity. Yeah. So.
Talking about generosity, I need to discuss with you about something that can be a little taboo, especially for people who are outside Americas. How generous is the American people?
Excuse me. Let me just have a sip of coffee here to answer that one. Philanthropy and charitable giving is something that is very much a part of the culture. So there is so American people, the statistics will show, the research has shown, are giving a lot of their income away. They're also wealthy people, right? But they give a pretty big degree of their income to charity. And very many people are charitable because it's part of the culture to do that. It's common for people to be asked to give, and they, even locally in neighborhoods and communities, there's Girl Scouts are asking for money, Boy Scouts are asking for money, the local Rotary, Lions Club, all these different organizations, and then of course there are the churches and the different religious organizations, everyone's asking for donations, and it's routine and accepted, and it's normal for that to happen in many different respects. So, yeah, Americans, and when it comes to sort of charitable giving, they are very generous, relatively speaking, because it's part of how the community runs.
And I need to add on this, when you're asked for the donation, usually people will say, where is the collateral? When you are going for the Girl Scout cookies, they say, this is our box of cookies, and it's like, okay, this is my takeaway of the donation. Or when you're going to the church on Sunday and it's like, okay, you give the donation, it's like, it helps some educational programs, or it helps to do the renovations of the churches. I mean, like, okay, people who have been here in Southeast Asia or in other places, they realize that around Easter or Christmas, all of a sudden the church is nicer than on average day. It's because they do renovations, because they expect a lot of people. And those renovations doesn't come from the sky. It comes from donations.
That's right.
So it makes sense. And it's true. The usual ask for a donation, even for the alumni sectors, and it's like, okay, we have this opportunity not to give by money, but let's say give our time to help the younger generation to come and get ready for interviews. It's like, okay, that's the other ask of donations. And it's surprising that it's so usual.
That's also a very typical, activity and a thing that's being done. Volunteerism is also a very important aspect of American life. And other places, it's not, of course, just America. All over the world, people are volunteering their time, set the money aside, but their time, their knowledge, their expertise. So.
Another point that I remember talking about charity, and in this case, helping business. During the pandemic, there was a lot of problems because local businesses couldn't get their PPP grants to get things moving. So I remember Dave Portnoy from Barstool Media. He began to fundraise money to help the mom and pop shops or the mom and pop pizzerias to say, hey, we're going to cover some of this, keep the business rolling.
Right.
And that generated news in late 2020 and late 2021. And people who happen to survive, they are like reminiscent of that memory. And even today, they are like, this business survived thanks to the Barstool Media. So it's like this kind of charity fundraising for other people, for other businesses. It's like an engine of economy that keeps growing.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's a very important part of the overall economy. And not just the economy, but overall just simply well-being of the people. Yeah.
Now, during your time in the States, there was a particular moments that happened through history. And I want to recall with you something that may be a little different in the before and after. The dot-com bubble and how we connect the internet with fundraising.
Right. Well, so I've been around, at a time when internet fundraising didn't exist. It was all done by mail or phone.
Okay.
Call people up on the phone, and that time they answered the phone. Today, no one ever answers the phone, right? And everything is a hand phone. And but at the time, it was very exciting to have a new way to reach people because you can reach them with a message and a video and a visual and all of that, right? So that really just took off. And that's, as we all know, we've never looked back. But even so, there's no question that in my own experience I have seen, I think this is true, and I think others will agree with me, that the face-to-face and the one-to-one fundraising, that's where the greatest amount of money comes, and that is where you'll see the most return on your investment of time and so on. And so internet fundraising, while it's very good for small amounts and for small projects and time-sensitive things, it's not so good for relationship building.
So happy to see right now the difference because these two can coexist, but one needs the other in order to multiply the effect.
Right. So what happens generally, when in the campaigns that I've been involved with, where we've done internet fundraising and email fundraising and so on, is that when we have to be able to identify and connect with the person who's made a large gift. So people will make gifts, $25, $50, $100, $500. When they make $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000, it's like boom, boom, bing, 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 And then you want to be able to contact that person and thank them much more personally. Find a way to reach them to say, we noticed that you did X, Y, Z, and we're very grateful, and thank you so much. And then you want to start building relationship. What prompted you to do that? Is there something special that you about our project that resonates with you? And start to take the action to engage them with them further. You might find that they will say, I really don't want to talk to you. Bye. But I think you have to have a thick skin if you're going to be in fundraising for very long, because you will have people say no. You will have people who will just want to keep their anonymity. Actually, that is something I've had to, work through in a number of significant gifts. People who don't want the attention, and yeah.
And it's so relatable because right now I see this behavior with a lot of family offices in Singapore. Let me disclose something that I see recently. Because a lot of people wants to move to Singapore to create family offices due to the benefits of the tax
That's right.
opportunities that they have, let's say single family or multi-family offices. A lot of those members, they want to stay anonymous. It's
Right.
like they don't put the light on me. They
Yeah.
just want to be like away of the light because the more anonymity they have, the more peace they have. And
I've
I
seen that a
understand.
lot. I very much understand that, and I've seen that a lot. And it's because once somebody has become known, is known to be generous, then they will start to be asked by other people. They will start to be approached, and if they don't want to have to deal with that, they will want to shield themselves from that. And that's why a lot of these really large family foundations or family companies who want to give, be philanthropic, they will actually put together a family office and hire people whose job it is to manage this for them, so that they are not on the front lines, and they're professional people whose job it is to field requests. And in fact, a lot of those family foundations and organizations will also, as part of their bylaws of how they operate, they will make it clear that they support certain things and not a lot of other things, so that it's very clear to anybody who's interested in approaching them. In fact, it's almost like, don't come to us, we'll come to you. In fact, there is something like unsolicited grant proposals that are not accepted. If no matter how wonderful your project is, if we are not the ones who came to you, we will not consider it. So there are lots of protections in place for those people who are significantly generous and want to not be deluged with with requests and all of that.
That reminds me of a quote. Clear boundaries create good neighbors. And it's like the practicality of that quote is more evident in this particular industry.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true.
Given your time in the Americas, people will say that, okay, one thing is that ecosystem, another thing is the ecosystem in Southeast Asia. Which has been the little differences you have seen in between those two ecosystems?
I think that one of the key differences is because the kind of philanthropy that we were talking about earlier that is at work and at play in the U.S. is not the same here. Here in Southeast Asia, possibly in Asia, but certainly in Southeast Asia and in Malaysia, the emphasis more has been on corporate giving and asking corporations to be supported through sponsorships and so on. And there definitely is more of a quid pro quo with that kind of philanthropy. Businesses they want the visibility. They want the benefits of their giving to be evident, so that they can make business connections and so on, and look like a CSR, have a CSR standing. So that right there is a key difference. I also think more of a sense of wanting to help poor people in Southeast Asia, and so People's Philanthropy is really focused on trying to help those who are less privileged. That's where I've seen generosity taking place more across the board, in this area. So the kinds of fundraising that is taken for granted in the U.S. around organizations asking people for money every single year, please give us something every year, that kind of thing is not done here very much. There's a whole area of fundraising called annual giving. It means every year you're expected to give something. So educational institutions will write to their alumni every year, well, they write to them all year long, but every year, and expect and hope for a gift at least once a year. And that's your annual gift. If you're giving every year, then we can count you as a supporter and a donor. That kind of routine annual giving, like an expectation that you will just give every single year, is not I have hardly seen it in the region here. Maybe a few people who have attended institutions that have strong connections with either Europe or the US. Those schools will be pursuing this type of giving, but for the most part, it's not something that is routine here the way it is there.
I can disclose something that I've seen with my eyes. One thing is the seasonal Texas A&M paper contest made by the Petroleum Engineering Department. That by the end of January, it's like the undergrad, the masters, and the PhDs. In each division, they have like a paper contest, and the alumni usually is like you can put $20 or $100 or $1,000. You can be a donor, you receive a gift, but this donation helps the number one, the capacity of the students to get ready. Number two, the donors to actually network with other potential donors. But also number three, the opportunity to see the young talent going on and get ready for these tournaments. Because then there is like the local tournaments, the regional tournaments, and the global tournaments. That happens like, okay, you receive the email, I receive an USB, it's like, okay, fine, but let me network with those people, let me see what is the new art, the new engineering coming through the school. I believe there is also the same amount of things when you talk about, oh, there is this pitch contest and the alumni are trying to donate something. But in Southeast Asia, I'm still yet to see that, for example, let's say the NUS or the other schools are like, okay, let's pitch our alumni to say, hey, there's going to be this pitch contest, donate something. And mostly you see at the bottom of the web page just the corporations, but you don't see names.
Right.
Whereas in the Texas A&M Petroleum,
names.
you see the names first.
Yeah.
Like the name and the year of graduation is like, these alumni are still doing something.
Yeah, they take a lot of pride in their philanthropy.
Now,
That's actually what you're describing is a really fun way to fundraise because it's almost like betting.
yeah,
I'm betting, which is fun. I mean, you're betting, but you're not going to get anything if you win. You just have the fun of knowing that you selected a winner.
yeah.
So, yeah.
It's like, okay, I put $20 to see how these two engineering concepts
Right.
can actually improve something for my recovery of oil or natural gas or the like of it.
Yeah, interesting.
Given these particular points of discussion, I need to ask you, through your career, which was the most challenging decision you did, and why was that?
I wouldn't call it a decision, but I would call it a process. I worked with for several years with one donor who was always changing his mind about. We would talk through what he wanted to support. We would write it up. We would get a lot of other people, faculty together to agree on what we were going to do, and then we would send it to him, and then he would, in the meantime, have spoken with someone else at the institution and got another idea, and he wanted us to change it again. This went on for about maybe 2.5, 3 years, and it just got so frustrating that I had to go around and talk to all of the faculty and try to say to them that this is in the nicest way, because you don't want this to get back to him, right? That we're frustrated, right? That he's doing this, because we couldn't close the deal. We couldn't finalize the project. It meant well. He wanted to help the institution, and he wanted to be sure it was something worth doing, because there's a large amount of money, multi-year gift. But he kept throwing a wrench into the thing that we had just decided and planned on by going to someone else at the institution. So I had to go around and say, when he comes to you, if he comes to you to talk to you, please don't give him any other ideas, and that was difficult, because it really meant asking your own faculty to not say things that they would otherwise be inclined to say. And of course, some of them, were agreeable to that, and some were like, it was difficult to have that conversation, because nobody wants to be told not to speak, right? Anyway, so I would say that was the most challenging case in philanthropy that I've had to deal with, because we didn't want to alienate this donor. We want them to be generous. We want them to. They really did care. I knew that this person really cared for the institution, but just couldn't stop meddling I would say. Yeah. It
It's,
finally worked out. He finally gave the money, but it was difficult.
it's so refreshing to hear that most of the times we have the preconception that people who are donating, that they have the big bucks, are usually those so easy to make decisions. But here we have the case of a typical wishy-washy Charlie Brown, who barely can make his mind, I believe, to say this is the right call, and it's like, why is taking so long, right?
I actually think that this person might have had some sort of a disorder or something like that that made it so that they couldn't just, stay focused on one thing. Um, but I can picture this. Actually, he's a wonderful man. I can picture him right now. A delightful human being, and so earnest, means so well, wants to do the right thing with their resources. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
meaning so much, so well, and it's like,
Hey, we're all tearing our hair out. What are we gonna do?
please just do the
Stop.
call.
Now that was an interesting and challenging one. Well, I had another gentleman who this was actually very difficult as well. Um, this gentleman was extremely wealthy and had already given some significant funds, but we wanted to, of course, to get some more resources. And but he was somebody who was so abrasive, so obnoxious, so rude, and he would say terrible things. He would bait you by saying racist things, misogynistic things, all kinds of awful things. And I'm sure, getting to know him a little bit over time, that he was doing it just to get a reaction from you. So the key with him was never react, just, keep going and then bring the conversation back to where you want to bring it. I mean, he ultimately was extremely generous. And I think he even probably on some level respected that we didn't get drawn in to getting angry. And we also didn't say, no, thank you, we don't want your money. We didn't say that. Which some people might have said, But so that was a challenging case because we also had to keep other people from reacting to some of this stuff. Because if other people had reacted and he knew it, then it might have, stopped, interfered with the philanthropy. It was all talk on his part. We never saw him actually do anything, but who knows?
This reminds me of a quote from
difficult donor.
this like, never fear a barking dog,
Yes.
because in order for a dog to attack you, it needs to be silent and bite you. When a dog is barking, it's like it's only making noise.
Yeah, he's trying to tell you, watch out for me. I'm a big,
Yeah,
bark. Yeah, this guy never did bite, and he actually was very generous.
yeah, that's very cool to hear about that. Something that a lot of people will be asking when they are doing due diligence and the fundraising is the source of money. Recently, we learned in Singapore that huge operations to find out there has been a lot of money laundering. And when people are doing the givings, the donations, how do you double check, or are you seeing how people do the due diligence to say this is good to go?
I would say that this has become more and more and more critically important over time. And with some of the major donors who have been found to be awful people, Jeffrey Epstein, for example, those organizations that took the money didn't give the money back because they'd already used it, spent it, built something, all the things that they did, but they disassociated themselves, of course, and condemned the person for what they had, condemned the person. That kind of, I've known people who actually lost their job because they did not do enough due diligence that was available at the time. It's all about what is available to you to know, right? If there's no way to know that someone is a pedophile, for example, you don't know, right? There's nothing out there, you can't find out, and you've taken their money. People will ask, how come you didn't know? And you have to be able to respond to that if something like that ever emerges. So you definitely want to do your homework. Which brings me to something that is a key part of fundraising that not a lot of people talk about. But research is a very important and key part of fundraising. Doing research about someone who's going to make a large gift is critically important, not only to establish that they have the capacity to do it and that you're asking for the right thing, but also to make sure that there's no skeletons that are maybe not well buried, that in fact if you had just done your homework, you would know that you don't want to take any money from this person or this entity and so on. So, but if you've done your homework and you in good faith know that there's no reason not to accept a significant gift, you've done your homework.
It's true, because you bring the subject that has made so many news, especially in Ivy League schools. There is always a debate about people who, okay, we accepted the donations pre the conviction that happened in Florida for some reason that he actually was convicted and went to jail. Okay, those people, okay, they have a pass because they didn't know at the time.
Right.
But the people who began to keep the engaging with Jeffrey Epstein after the conviction, after he got the sweetheart deal, it was like you knew he was a clear convict. You knew his past. Why you're still engaging with them? Those are the people who must have another due diligence on their own.
Yeah, that's right. No, that's right. In fact, I'm sure that some of those people did lose their jobs. Yeah, so that does happen in philanthropy. If the people in charge have not ensured that they have done their due diligence and it's find out that they took money from someone who's not reputable, it will cost you.
And a lot. Not only jobs, careers, or even reputation.
Absolutely.
Because what it takes years to make, it can be lost in seconds. And just because you were in the heat of the moment or the prisoner of the moment, and it's like sometimes it's better to let me think about it, let me analyze or break the echo room. Not to be a wishy-washy Charlie Brown for sure, and taking so long to take a decision. And then
I like
say,
Charlie Brown. I'm going to say wishy-washy. Charlie Brown is a sweetheart.
I know. I mean, you know how I got this quote? It's because way back when I was in Texas A&M under the guidance of Commander Christina Economides for my master's in petroleum, she quoted that because when she was growing up in Indiana, peanuts was very famous in the 60s for her.
Yeah.
And she always had that quote that everybody who is making a hard time to make a simple decision, they used to label that way.
I wish you watched Charlie Brown. Oh, that's sad.
I mean,
he's got a big heart.
Of course, everybody can remember the clip that is popular nowadays, how Charlie Brown discovered Snoopy and how he adopted, and then Linus was like, well, look at that, Snoopy was already turning back, and it's like, and Charlie was like, I'm gonna keep Snoopy. So that was maybe the only decision he was clear on his mind the whole life.
Well, that was a good decision.
Yeah.
That's funny. It's a lot of fun to talk to you about fundraising, Fabian, because it has been, I have to say, a wonderful career for me. It's been so I felt so privileged to be around people who want to do something good with their money, and they want to help people, they want to solve problems, they want to make the community stronger, and to be around those people and to help them to achieve that for themselves as well as for the organization that you represent, it's wonderful. Yeah.
Given that context and enjoying all this conversation, I don't want to eat more of your time, but I believe that there are going to be young people watching this. A lot of them are going to be some young Susannes watching this. What piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh, let me think about this. I think that having courage to pursue your ideas and your dreams. I would say to try to find that courage, to not be overly deferential to other people necessarily every time, to make sure that your ideas are finding some space, because otherwise, there's someone else will always sort of get in front of you, and then you will not, move forward as quickly. I think particularly I would have to say that this is advice for women. To being deferential, and you know what I mean by that, right? Can actually, you can find yourself being lost in the back because you're putting other people forward all the time. So I think that's one piece of advice. The other piece of advice is be aware of what's happening around you. Don't always stay in your lane. It's okay to inquire and to try to figure out what other people are up to, what they're doing, so that you're more informed about your own organization and what's happening around you. Some people feel that, oh, I'm going to stay out of politics. Well, let's face it, everything is politics, right? You have to be aware of what's happening. Otherwise, again, you will find yourself on the sidelines while other people are moving forward. So you have to be conscious of that. So, but having said that, I think that having a heart and showing care to people around you is absolutely essential. You'll lose yourself if you're not doing that. So make sure that you are, tuning to your own kindness and compassion when it comes to other people. So
I cannot find a better way to close this episode. How can people find you?
Well, I'm down there on the first floor. I don't know who's listening to this episode, but I love to talk to people. I love to meet people. It's one of the pleasures of philanthropy is engaging and learning about other people. So yeah, I'm on the first floor in Asia School of Business, and there's only one Susanne Hashim out there. So if you look me up, you'll find me.
Thank you very much, Susanne, for all your time
Thank
and
you,
all your
Fabian.
work.
I appreciate the good questions. Thank
And
you.
for people out there, please stay safe and see you where you see you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.